Welcome to GameFellas, the Retro to Modern Gaming Podcast, episode 22. We are back. It's been a while, actually. Over a month, I think, since we released an episode. So things have been crazy, but that's okay. Tonight, we have many of our usual crew here, starting with MarkMSX. How you doing, Mark?
Doing well. Well, I'm burning up, but...
Burning up in 98-degree weather in Idaho.
Yeah, it's a sweat lodge in here, but that's okay.
What about over in the UK, Justin?
Yeah, doing very well. It has been exceptionally hot here, and now it's still warm. But warm for us is what, Fahrenheit-wise, 70.
Oh my God, that's nice weather.
I mean, that's pretty warm for us. So it's still shorts and t-shirt weather, but the great British summer it's coming to a close, unfortunately.
Good to know. And we have our producer, Derik Moore, of course, who's off camera, who will be doing his usual rounds of intermittently popping in to give us jokes. And
off camera for everyone's benefit.
Lastly, we have a featured guest who's coming on for the first time, and that is my brother, Dana Smith. After a year and a half, finally got him on the podcast. Say hello, brother.
Hello, brother.
Yeah. So the reason, having him on for two reasons. Number one, he is a game developer. It's kind of his, hobby / project he's working on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later towards the end, but I'm sure his insights will come in handy too throughout the episode. But also I'm bringing him on because we're going to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 a bit on this episode and the controversy around it. Obviously, the game itself. It's a little maybe old news by this point, but I always like to talk about things a little bit past when they were at their most heated, because then we can kind of put it in perspective better, I feel like, So anyway, before we get into that, we're going to have our usual what we've been playing segment. So Dana, other than Last of Us Part 2, which you just played through, what else have you been playing lately?
Yeah, so The Last of Us 2 was like a mission you sent me on. But I've also... There was another mission you sent me on, which is Breath of the Wild, which I'm very glad you did.
It only took 3 years to get you to finally play it.
I wanted to play it with my
literally, I bought him a Switch. Well, I bought my niece a Switch, his daughter, Ellie, and so it worked.
Yeah, oh man, my kids, I mean, I'm going to look back years from now and see... I played with both my girls and my wife. We all sat down as a family and played through the entire game, almost all the temples, all the expansions and everything, and they just loved it. It was like, We're going to look back years from now and be like, those were the finest times in the Smith house.
The pandemic times of Breath of the Wild. Yeah,
it was wonderful, especially during a pandemic. It's like the girls are trapped inside. My eldest daughter, Ellie, has health conditions where we have to be really careful with COVID. She has lung issues. And so what better game to sit down with than Breath of the Wild, where you can roam around the world and in this beautiful lyrical wilderness. And what was really awesome about it is not only did I get to see the game through fresh eyes, but by playing with them, but they also had never played a game like that before. So it was their first open world adventure. They had never kind of experienced that kind of gameplay before. So it was kind of like I got to experience an open world adventure for the first time too, almost, because, they just had no idea what to expect from it.
When was the last time you played an open world game, though? It's been a while, right?
Yeah, I played all the World of Warcraft types of stuff with my wife, back in the day and stuff like that. And, a bunch here and there, but it's like you get used to those type of gameplay elements over time. You know what to expect, but not only was Breath of the Wild kind of different from a lot of other open world games, but it was also just the first for them. And so it was it was great. My youngest liked to just kill stuff, she's 4 years old. And she loved to just
swing the sword,
charge into monsters and kill stuff. And then my eldest loved solving the puzzles and loved the very subtle kind of storyline elements and just very attentive to that kind of thing. So it was great.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you guys. I'm regretful too because of the stupid pandemic that I couldn't. I mean, I guess I could have, but it's we're trying to be safe, So yeah, I've just been from afar, been hearing about it, seeing pictures, and it's been cool. I'm happy you guys got to enjoy that because, me and my brother, I'll send him I'll send him text messages all the time saying, "Hey man, you should check this game out." And he never does. It's rare, because
I'm busy.
Well, he's busy, and also our game interests, the genres of games we like are they're different, So a lot of games I'll play, he'll be like, I don't know. Usually, if it's crickets, it means he's not interested. But at least in this case, I'm glad that he can say that I was right. For once, this wasn't
never
just
super into Zelda games, but this one was just so different. Yeah.
They switched it up. They really, and we've talked about Breath of the Wild ad nauseum on this podcast already. So, but it is cool to get your perspective about it, and especially from your girls. That they enjoyed it, so that's great, man. Any other honorable mentions? Anything else that you've? I mean, I know did you really mess around with Animal Crossing at all?
We did, yeah. So
another game that we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast.
It's all kids, like everything right now, because I'm doing game development stuff and have a really involved day job and everything. Like all the gaming stuff has to be laundered through family life, And so, my wife and I and 2 kids, we play Switch games together. And so I bought my girls some PC gaming rigs, for some PC games and stuff. But Castle Crashers, they love Castle Crashers.
Oh yeah, great game.
Animal Crossing. Surprisingly, Smash Brothers, they're really into.
So they're getting into Smash now.
Yes, they got into it.
Oh, okay, all right. So that are they just messing around, or are they actually learning?
Oh, they're learning how to play. Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Mark. Mark's a competitive Smash player, right?
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He plays mostly Melee though, like the GameCube one.
I don't play Ultimate. I play Melee.
Yeah.
Which came out with rollback netcode, by the way, which is really awesome. So popping off more than ever.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you play, Mark, through the Dolphin emulator? Yep. Is that how you play?
Yes.
Okay.
They have a special build for it now called Slippy that has rollback netcode, which means it's a lot less laggy. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's not like Soul Calibur 6 and stuff when we play. It's like playing offline a lot of time. It's really cool. Yeah, I've been really digging it.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you, Dana. Thank you for that. Justin, it's been a while. What have you been playing, man?
It has been a while. I know I'm going to draw the ire of many at some point here. I believe I haven't talked about playing Paper Mario.
The new one.
The new one, yeah. Okay.
I thought it looked really good, actually, from what I saw.
Well, I think it will feature in our later topic as well. As I have a lot to talk about on that. But it was pretty much what I expected, which was a very Paper Mario-y looking game. Good audio, good visual. A kind of, I think I've used the term before, mind melt. Just like a mind melt adventure. Like there's nothing too crazy in there that really has to work you particularly hard, but you just want to push through, have a bit of fun, kick around. You're just exploring around that kind of world. I really enjoyed it. I got out of it everything I expected.
Is it similar to the other? I think I played the Wii Paper Mario back in the day. It's the only one I've played. Is it similar type of experience to the previous ones?
It is. When we say the previous ones, of course, this is the sticking point in the community as to.
I haven't kept up with this, so you'll have to fill us in.
Yeah, well, I'd say I'll lean on it. I'll lean on it in a bit later. But suffice to say, Paper Mario started one way, which was essentially very RPG-like, almost like the kind of spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG.
Okay. Yep.
And then very quickly, it kind of turned a bit more to an action-adventure type game, and the RPG elements became more and more diluted.
I see.
And this is one of the kind of, I would argue, one of the most divisive, certainly Nintendo things in all.
Let's be honest. What is not divisive these days? That's what this whole episode's going to be about. Is everything being divisive?
I find that comment divisive.
Yeah,
sir.
Yeah. So
most divisive Nintendo controversies is an episode in itself.
Yeah.
There's plenty. Breath of the Wild, man. There's people that absolutely hate it, and so
there's a classic. There's a classic. So it's that. We'll come to that a bit later. I don't want to ruin that because Paper Mario is a great example of this very thing. But no, I got out of it everything I wanted. It sets the bar where it sets the bar, and you either
sounds like a pretty average experience. You don't sound very enthused. You're like, it's fine.
Meh.
I'm not. It didn't blow me away, but then I didn't expect to be blown away. I thought visually it was very nice. It was very pretty to my expectation, and the audio was up with that as well. I think what I would say for maybe this sits. In fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think this actually sits better with a British sense of humour. But the localization humour I thought was fantastic. That was well worth it. It was very funny, and I think it would appeal more to an English market than it would American. Oddly, I moved on to, which I keep dipping in and out of, a game called Black Future 88.
No idea what that is.
Well, it comes with the R word, I'm afraid. It is roguelike.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. We pressed the rogue button.
Yeah.
So, I to be honest, I've only kind of touched this sort of not for very long. I like the idea. It's got that it feels like you're playing in Stranger Things. The audio is the soundtrack's very much like from Stranger Things. It's got that very kind of 80s kickback feel. It's set in a kind of a perpetual nuclear holocaust post-apocalyptic world. That kind just
seeing the footage playing, it looks kind of like Axiom Verge a little bit. That style, like
it is. Although of course, Axiom Verge falls into that other divisive one, which is the M word, which is a
Metroidvania, right? Yeah.
Of course. But I've kind of kicked about on that, but it does have that one more go feel to it. It makes me think, no, hang on a minute. I want another. No, hang on a minute. I think I can do a bit better next time. And that kind of grab on that kind of game, I think, is a nice thing. I think the 80s thing for me in particular is a huge draw. The visuals are a huge draw. The soundtrack is a great draw. Love that. But again, let's go with divisive. The theme of the day. I've been sitting on this for about 25 years. I have perpetually told myself I'm going to go back and play this game at some point. And I'm playing Final Fantasy VII.
Oh my god! You're playing. You're not playing the remake. You're playing the original.
Dun, dun, dun.
I refuse to play the remake.
Why?
Because I want to go back and play through the original again.
Oh yeah, the remake.
But you're going to get around to it, is what you're saying.
So look, here's my thing with this, right? I played the original. I guess about 1997.
That's when I played it. I never finished it, but I played it.
So I'd have been 12 or 13 years old, and I haven't played it since. And it's funny that despite all the commentary that everyone always has about Final Fantasy VII, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, whatever, I legitimately haven't played it for 25 years. And so my memory of it, even having played through the first two and a half hours of the game, it's very sketchy. So it's actually like playing it again. I loosely remember the storyline and what was going on, and it's very nostalgic. But through the first 2.5 hours of the game, I am absolutely smitten with it again. The remake is there's no reason for me, no bad reason for me not wanting to touch it. It's just, I don't know that I can step away from what I feel I left in 1997. And when I read the reviews as to it doesn't take you all the way through the game, it just takes you through this kind of first part of the game. And I was like, okay.
You have to pay $200 to get through the whole game eventually when they release the other parts.
Yeah, so the too long didn't read version. They don't make them like they used to.
It could be. I don't know, but I make no apologies for picking up again one of the most divisive games of recent times. But I am absolutely smitten with it again.
That's cool,
and I'm really pleased with that. So I'm really enjoying getting back into it.
All right, I'm impressed, man. You went back. I feel like you're not the only one that's told me that lately, that when they released the remake, for some reason, was it Daria, I think, that said she went back and was playing Final Fantasy VII also, like the original? They're like, fuck the remake, I'm going to play the original. It's just interesting that that people are doing that now. I don't know if I ever will go back to it. I might someday.
I think I will, but I want to wait until they're all out as opposed to play through a fraction of it and then forget what was happening a year and a half later.
Yeah, I just think Square has a tendency, and this is throughout their history, to get way too ambitious with projects. I mean, just the Final Fantasy movie was one example. I mean, they ended up spending hundreds of millions of dollars on that movie and didn't even and almost bankrupted the company, because they got way too crazy. And it feels like this was also, they're like, oh, we'll make a remake. And then they're like, oh, we're getting in over our heads. We're gonna have to split this up into 3 or 4 parts, and it just gets crazy. So anyway, all right, Mark, what have you been playing, man? What shmups?
Boring the audience as usual. I'm still playing Dodonpachi, still chasing that Western record. But since then, I also got a little world record in Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo.
That's right, you did.
That's
impressive,
exploiting some. Well, basically, you just had to exploit some milking sections. So basically, there's a boss fight, and you just fight the boss for about an hour and a half, and you get all these extra points you can't get normally. And then the last boss, there's another part where you fight him for about 45 minutes, and you put them together, and you have a world record. But when I went to upload the video, I was like, okay, who's going to sit through a 3 or something hour video of me fighting these bosses? So I time-lapsed them. And I had to time-lapse them to buy like 1,000 or something like that, just to get it down to a reasonable length.
Yeah,
I found another one
nuts, man.
For Batman Returns on the SNES. So I'll do that one next. You'll see a world record score of Batman Returns.
Yeah, Mark is Dana. Mark, you watching this, Dana? The footage of Dodonpachi here?
I've never seen. This is like the 9th circle of bullet hell.
It is, man. It's and Mark is a hardcore like Dodonpachi. How long have you been playing Dodonpachi like competitively? Like for years now, right? It seems like
now.
2.5 years, and he can not only you can beat the game, you can clear the game without dying, right? I mean, or at least a 1cc, right? Like what's?
Yeah, I got one. Well, if you count both loops. I got one.
Right.
I did it once.
Not just one loop, 2 loops of the game.
If you count the first loop, I can no miss, no bomb it fairly well.
Yeah. So
I did yesterday.
How many nights out of the week do you dream about that game then? If you play it much,
a lot. I've had dreams about it. Me
and Mark played. I played with Mark. We played over Parsec, and I played with him. We played through the whole game, and I probably died 100 times. Like it's insane, So I have mad respect for that.
Awesome.
What you're doing. Yeah, it's insane. Like those the shooters from that era of the early 2000s or whatever, or just
late 90s, early 2000s.
The Cave shooters. Cave was the company that made a lot of these games. They redefined what a shmup is, I think.
And they're all harder than a 13-year-old at a strip club.
Yeah. They're rough.
So
a game that you guys might have played. I went back and played Mafia. You guys ever play that?
I've heard of it. I haven't played.
Played it. It's a real old PC game, and it's not
a Rockstar game, is it?
No. It's some smaller studio.
Okay.
I think they're going to release a remaster of it or something like that. It's pretty interesting, and it's like kind of a weird sim game too, where the cars drive at like 30 miles an hour, and it's pretty interesting, but it has a really good story. One of the few video game stories that I enjoy. So I played through some of that, but then I was getting a little bit bored.
What was that? It says PC. Was it out? Was it like a PS2 era game?
Yeah, so I played it on the Xbox originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Surprised I missed it then.
Yeah, the Xbox version's pretty solid too.
Yeah, because me and my brother both played a lot of games on Xbox, the original back in the day, because that's what we had. And so I'm surprised that I missed that one, because we played Hitman, we played a lot of those Splinter Cell, a lot of those. Yeah, Splinter Cell was another one that were birthed on the Xbox. Yeah. All right, man.
Pretty much it.
All right.
Oh, and Melee, a ton of Melee.
Of course.
Netbacode. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, of course. Melee too. Great. Smash Brothers Melee. All right, we'll move on to me, and let's see. Borderlands 3, I'm still playing through with my buddies. We've beaten the game. We're on to the DLC now, which is we played through Moxie's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot, which is basically Handsome Jack is the antagonist from the second game, and very beloved antagonist, it seems like. So they did a DLC based on him, even though he's dead. They basically had it to where he created a casino in space. to steal everybody's money. So you got to go through the casino, and it's pretty fun. And now we're playing Guns, Love, and Tentacles, which is the second DLC, which is H.P. Lovecraft themed, I guess. So it's very horror-esque with tentacles everywhere and, that sort of thing. Having a lot of fun. Borderlands 3, I've talked about it before. It's a fun looter shooter type game. I wasn't super impressed with the story, or there's some standout characters here and there, but it's mostly mindless fun for me. I just do it to play with my buddies and have fun, but it's cool, So the other game I've been playing is I bought the Master Chief Collection because somehow I missed that Microsoft released the Halo games on PC, late last year, I think. So I decided to get it, and me and one of my buddies started playing the first game together in campaign mode, the original Halo, which me and my brother played to death. Like we would play through the original campaign on Legendary, right?
Yeah.
And we got to the point where I think we could beat it without dying.
Without dying, yeah.
Yeah, that was our goal, was to beat.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, and this was back in 2002, 2003, probably. So yeah, and it's cool because I remember when Soren was on a couple episodes ago, he was talking about the Command & Conquer remaster that they did, where you could hit a button and switch the graphics back and forth between the old and the new, and you can do that with this Halo. You just hit a button on the controller, and it'll literally switch back, just instantly for the original, like polygonal looking graphics at this point to the new updated graphics. I think what Derik's showing is the updated one, which is, they remastered in HD. It looks really good, but I'm finding it a lot of fun to switch back and forth between the old graphics and new graphics, because we'll be in an area and I'm like, man, this looks familiar, but I'm not sure. So I'll switch it back to the old graphics, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly where I am now, So it's fun to do that, and Halo's still a ton of fun. Like, we're really enjoying it a lot. We've only played a couple hours, but it holds up, man. It really does. Like,
yeah, great game.
It really holds up. I haven't played multiplayer yet, and I'm not sure I will with anybody other than people I know, because it's really annoying playing with, that's what turned me off from online gaming, was Halo 2 when that was the online for that. Just
yeah, man,
it ruined it.
Experience is
dude, you remember, man.
Underrated.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to playing, because the Master Chief Collection has all the Halo games up to 4, I think. So we're gonna play through all of them. Because I missed out on 3 and 4, and I think it isn't 5 out now. I think I don't even know. I've lost count.
5 is out, and Infinite just got delayed till 2021.
Infinite got delayed. That's good, because I'll definitely play that since it's on PC. It's going to be on PC now. So Microsoft, man, they're bumping all their stuff to PC now. So guess what? I bought Halo again, because the only reason I haven't played it in so long is because I didn't have an Xbox. So anyway, that's a lot of fun. We're having fun with the Master Chief Collection. But the game I've been playing the most, pretty much every night, because I've just been depressed with the state of the world, and I've just wanted a game I can just sit back and just veg out and slow-paced, methodical, is Civilization 6. My brother will be very proud of me for playing a strategy game, because I really haven't played many strategy games in the last 10 years or so. I don't know. I just kind of just moved on to other things, but man, I don't know why I don't know why I picked it up, but I think my buddy Donald got it for free on Epic. It was free on Epic Games, and he's like, hey, why don't you get Civ 6 and we'll play? And I'm like, okay. So I bought it on Steam and we played, and dude, it's fantastic. It's a little, I think they've made it more in depth than the previous Civ games. Like, you have districts now. It's not just a single city, but you build districts, and there's a lot more you can do. There's lots of paths to victory. There's a religious victory. You can convert everyone to your religion. There's a science victory. You can out-science everybody. There's
the nukes.
Yeah, the nukes. Obviously, there's the military victory, which we were literally playing last night, and I developed a thermonuclear bomb, and I just eradicated everybody. And what's cool is when you drop a nuke, it irradiates everything. So if you go in that area, your units die. You can't really use your cities if you have a city near the radiation. It has a couple of expansions that came out also. One of them is called The Gathering Storm. And with The Gathering Storm, and Dana, you'll find this interesting, is they added natural disasters, but also geology and rivers. And there's actually like for instance, so if you start dropping nukes everywhere, it warms the climate of the world and raises the sea levels, stuff like that. If you have too many factories in the game, like I said, the CO2 rises, and like I said, actually there's climate and there's actual elements like that make it super interesting to play. It's probably not anywhere on the level of what you're going for with Songs of the Aeons, but it is interesting, and it is pretty cool that they went that route with Civ 6. So I'm just really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. It's out on everything too. You can get it. They just released it for Android, so you can play it on your phone if you want. Although I hear it doesn't run very well, but it's on Switch. You can get it on Switch. You can get it on, like I said, Android, iOS, PC. But I like having it on the big screen on my PC with a mouse where you can zoom way in, see what's going on in your cities and your units, and it's great, man. I love it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So looking for people to play with too, other people. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. So we will wrap up our what we've been playing section and move on to our first discussion topic, which is going to be The Last of Us Part 2 and the social media controversy surrounding it. Now, it's going to be impossible to talk about this without spoilers, so I'm just going to say ahead of time that we're spoiling the shit out of this game. If you haven't played it by now, I'm sorry. I know three of the five of us that are on here tonight have not played it, but that's fine because they can weigh in about the controversy and whatnot. But so, The Last of Us Part 2 was released to much fanfare, actually, and critical acclaim when it first came out. At least that's how it seemed at first, right? But like most opinions in 2020, the consensus was split ultimately, because that's just the way things are nowadays. So people began to complain about the story choices that were made, characters that were being killed, and design elements that they found offensive. And hence, the social media backlash began. Death threats to the voice actors, boycotts, review bombs, and countless Twitter tirades about why The Last of Us Part 2 was a betrayal to not only the first game, but video gaming and entertainment in general. There were, of course, some honest critiques of the game with real concerns about like its length. It was kind of long, right? And sometimes tiresome gameplay elements, for instance. But the angry internet mob seemed to drown out the reasonable people that were making actual critiques of the game. But this is unfortunately par for the course in 2020. So with this in mind, let's first discuss The Last of Us Part 2, its story, and the reasons people were upset to begin with. Then we can move on to a more broad look at the social media and gaming in general. So Dana, you played it, you finished it a couple nights ago, literally. So I want you to go through the story. I finished it about a month ago, so I'm not quite as fresh as you are. So go through the story and tell us what you thought of the game, and then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of the controversies. And unfortunately, it's going to get a little political in here. So I've had some of our I've had some people that watch this podcast tell me that they enjoy that we don't get political on here. So I'm going to try and be as level-headed as I can without injecting too much of my personal beliefs about elements of this game, but it might get a little political. So go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, so it's funny because I intentionally decided not to read anything about the controversy before playing. I didn't want to contaminate like the experience, right? And it's funny because as I was playing along, like I was like, oh yeah, people are going to be pissed about that. Oh yeah, people are going to be pissed about that, So, after the whole Gamergate thing years ago and controversies that have come up recently, like, I just knew what some people would be like triggered by or whatever. But so when I played the original Last of Us, it actually had a much bigger impact on me than I think it did for most people, because I literally played the game the moment my daughter Ellie was born, and she was really sick and in the hospital. We didn't know if she was going to live or not. And so I'm literally playing through the scene where Joel is running through the hospital with his daughter, with his sort of surrogate daughter, Ellie. And I sort of completely understood.
The same name too, Ellie. Yeah.
My daughter's name is Ellie. And so I was like, oh man, this is like way too on the nose, And so it really struck me very emotionally and deeply. And I remember at the end of the game, you basically, at playing as Joel, you commit some pretty terrible, horrendous crimes in the name of saving your surrogate daughter.
Yeah, you wipe out an entire hospital of people, basically.
Yeah, and you kill the doctor. And I remember, Zach, when you told me to play the game, I said, man, when you killed that doctor, like I had really mixed feelings about it like that. it's like, I don't see how Joel could live with himself and stuff like that. And of course, all of those terrible deeds come to fruition in the next game. And so I thought that was just, I'll tell you right now, I know a lot of people were upset about the game. I completely understand why some people might have found it boring or something, but I loved it from a narrative standpoint. I loved it because it was a very new, novel experience for me when it came to a game. It explored a lot of really interesting territory, not necessarily gameplay-wise, but we'll get into why. And so basically, the way the story is it picks up on the last game where you play as this guy Joel. It's sort of a post-apocalyptic zombie story where this fungus, which drives people crazy, has infected most people on Earth.
Which is great because it's based on a real fungus that infects ants, right?
It's funny because I was I studied ants, right, for a while, and
that's right, you did.
Encountered this specific disease, and it basically
zombie ants
makes an ant go crazy, and it's infected by this fungus, and then infects other ants, et cetera, et cetera. So it was pretty biologically, it was pretty accurate, which is cool. But basically, the story is about this guy Joel who loses his daughter early in the apocalypse, right, and basically ends up more or less adopting this other young girl about 14 years of age, and they grow close. And the second story picks up where they've kind of escaped. Joel has effectively escaped with Ellie, and they're kind of living their life in this rural city out in Montana, and the game picks up where effectively the doctor that you killed, the people who you had killed, like their friends are now coming after Joel to make him pay for what they've done. And it starts out this cycle of revenge between Ellie and this other character, Abby, who had her father killed by Joel. And so you play the game basically initially as Ellie trying to get revenge. You're trying to track down Abby. You're fighting your way through both these zombies as well as all of these people who you want revenge on. And initially, it feels a lot like a lot of other first-person shooter survival games where you encounter an enemy and you shoot them and they fall in the dirt and you don't think much about them. And after sort of carving your way through all these people mercilessly, you're forced to switch perspectives halfway through the game.
Yeah, that's when things get interesting.
And then you end up playing as Abby. And I completely understand, like, depending on what you
antagonist, right?
Game,
she was supposed to be the antagonist, but then they flipped the whole script on you.
Right.
This is what pissed off so many people, Yeah, but I thought it was kind of brilliant.
Right, and as you're playing with Ellie, and what was really interesting about the narrative is most of the time you're playing Halo or something, you're shooting aliens, you're playing Call of Duty, you're shooting Nazis or something. You don't think much about the people that you're killing, but in The Last of Us, as you're killing people, fighting the bad guys, you'll shoot a man and you'll hear his wife or girlfriend shriek in grief because you killed the person that they loved, or you'll shoot a dog that's coming to attack you and they'll be like, no, you killed my dog Bear, and it's like, and you're like, oh gosh, like maybe there's like people behind these, apparently faceless people.
Did you catch when, like, okay, so remember this, the part, there's a part when you're playing as Ellie through the first part where you're killing a lot of dogs. There's a lot of dogs coming for you,
Bear,
right?
The dog.
And
right?
then yeah, Bear, right. So then when they switch this, they switch to Abby and you go back in time and you see it from her perspective, like you see all the dogs in her encampment that you killed earlier, but they're alive because they took you back in time. It's really,
with them,
it's a total mind fuck, like they're like, it messes with you, it's interesting how they did it.
Yeah, it totally humanizes the people that you have to, and I can understand if you're playing a game because you want to go through the usual vengeance cycle where you're the good guy and they're the bad guys, and you want the gratification of getting your revenge and vanquishing the bad guys. I can see how this would be a very difficult game to play through, just like it would be kind of difficult to, have some political opinions and then sit down at a dinner party with people who thought differently. But like, it's definitely it's a very new kind of experience in gaming. At least it was for me, which is why I thought it was interesting. And I don't want to play the same game over and over and over again. I want a new experience. I want new characters with different, characteristics and attributes. And so I thought it was a great sometimes painful experience. And
painful to be sure.
yeah, and most of the time in the game, you kind of you want the vengeance cycle to play out. You want to get the better of the bad guy, but like very rarely have I played a game where by the end of it, I just want nothing to happen. I just want everyone to stop, and it was really emotional to play through the game. And,
there was so many moments, like when my favorite moment in the game is when Ellie and what's her girlfriend's name?
it was Dina,
yeah. When it's near the beginning, when you're the one open world section of the game where you're on the horse and riding around, you find the guitar in in that dilapidated building, and you're sitting there learning how to play, and it's the song that Joel taught her, before he was murdered. There's so many just touching little moments like that, sprinkled throughout the game.
And it's very subtle. It's not, they don't hit you over the head with these subtle little, with like these big emotional moments. It's very...
Or actually my favorite, probably my favorite part of the game was the, when they go to the science museum, in the flashback sequence with Joel and Ellie. That was, it was one of the few moments in the game where no one's dying. There's no chaos. There's no murder and mayhem. It's a very quiet, touching moment between the two of them that builds, it builds their relationship even more, which is why one of the controversies obviously was that Joel gets killed by Abby near the very beginning, within the first 2 hours of the game, right? So people were so pissed off about that. They acted like Joel was some sort of saint, right? Like he was this amazing character. And while he was kind of a bad dude, I mean, kind of is maybe an understatement. He was a kind of, what he did to save Ellie was noble, I guess, but at the same time, he murdered a bunch of people, and there's consequences for that.
One important detail in the story was
anti-hero,
Ellie wanted to die. She wanted to die for the cure.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons they become estranged before he dies, was because he subverted her. He put his own sort of paternal instincts and wants before what she wanted, and so it was like, he really, at the end of the day, he kind of, from anyone's perspective, but someone who had played the game as Joel, you would look at Joel and be like, this guy got what he had coming to him. I mean, and they didn't even, Abby, when she killed Joel, she didn't even kill Joel's brother or Ellie, so it was like, they let him off the hook too and paid for it later. So
I think people, that upset a lot of people for a number of reasons. Number one is that, and I sort of, I don't think Abby is the greatest character in the world. Like she was fine. I thought she was interesting, but I don't know. I definitely was more, and I'm just more attached to Ellie because you play her through 2 games, right? And I think she's a little more. I thought she was just more interesting, but a lot of people had major gripes about having to play with Abby through half the game, after she killed Joel. And I don't know. I feel like
it's like when you have to play as Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2, people pissed about that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But now we look back and, well, I personally like Raiden, so I never had a problem with it.
Was he like a bad guy? I'd never played. Was he unambiguously a bad guy, or what?
No, so Raiden was, everyone said he was a little Nancy pretty boy, like femboy, and they wanted their masculine Solid Snake.
Yeah.
They didn't want this pretty boy doing cartwheels. So
dude, Raiden, I remember Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 4, I think.
Yeah, and then they completely like changed his character, basically. I think based a lot on the fan response. Like Raiden goes from being well, over the course of the game, he kind of does too. So
and that's the thing, right? You wonder if, I think there's going to be a Last of Us Part 3. It just seems likely at this point. The game still sold amazingly well and was well received by critics, and I think a lot of people did enjoy it a lot. I just think that, like these things are, there was definitely an outcry from people that didn't, and there's no real way to tell. It was like with Star Wars, right? With all the controversy about these new movies, it's hard to say how many people actually hated The Last Jedi and how many actually really liked it. For example,
I feel like a lot of people just want to, in some regards, want a straw man to beat up on, because like I was reading right before, after I finished the game, then I read up on like the controversies. There were people like drawing conclusions about the game before it was even out, before they could play it. And they had to have an opinion about it. Oh, Abby is a trans like woman or something, you know, before they.
And she wasn't even trans. That's the thing. There is a trans character in the game, but it wasn't her. She's just a buff woman. She got buff so she could go kill Joel, you know,
but the funny thing is I get the feeling a lot of people were pissed off because like, I don't know, you got to have a sexy girl in the game or something to titillate you. And like, but that's the kind of thing
no matter how you slice it now, though, you're going to have issues like I'm a big fan of Dead or Alive, which is full of sexy, busty women.
Yep.
That's really controversial, too. So any way you slice it, you're going to get...
You can't win now.
Hot water.
I think in this day and age, you just can't win. It seems like no matter what you do, someone is going to be upset about something. I think you can minimize it for sure. Like The Last of Us 2 took some pretty bold steps in like representation, I guess. Right, the main couple is a lesbian couple. You have Abby, who's in touch with her masculine side, to say the least. She helps a trans kid who's being hunted because because she's trans, you know. It's like there's a lot of things in there that they knew were gonna.
A little funny though.
Yeah,
that does seem a little funny. It's like we're in a post-apocalyptic wasteland full of zombies and death, but we got to get that trans person.
It's we
got to make time for that.
Yeah,
it was a little dense. I think
it's what I call overcompensation, right? Like I have no issue at all with there being trans characters, lesbian characters, but I feel like they try. You know, they wanted. To represent, to I guess appeal to that crowd and to, so they did, and that's
make
fine.
A character whose character isn't that they are insert minority here.
Yeah.
You can have a good character who happens to be that.
Yeah.
That was the issue.
I think the only like sort of point, like, so for instance, Ellie was a lesbian and her girlfriend was, I think, bisexual.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like, they never really made a big point out of that. I actually thought it actually added to her character because you couldn't, okay, so now she's like 18 years old and she's hanging out with this older guy. So now you can't confuse the nature of their relationship if she's a lesbian, So it kind of clarified that part of the story, which I thought was kind of welcome. I think the only thing that sort of where sort of like there was a plot point made out of gender identity was probably the trans issue because the political or the sort of like the religious cult didn't, they were traditionalists and they, wanted to punish him for,
wanting to
being a heretic or something, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was. They did kind of take that angle with it. So the let's talk a little more about the controversy, and maybe this can lead into it's because this applies to other games too. This isn't
I think
the first.
It's going to apply to everything that's going to be released moving forward. And I think
you're probably right.
Well, I think the underlying issue with all of this stuff, with Last of Us or Final Fantasy VII Remake and all this stuff, is that we've kind of turned video games and films into sort of battle arenas for our political and social views, or in a way that we haven't really done before. And so that's why you're going to see everything being controversial, because you'll see this in YouTube and stuff. People will just take a piece of art and sort of just bend it towards their, like, making some sort of political statements. That's like a big thing. And gets a lot of views, that gets a lot of traction. And that's a lot less interesting than kind of the old school stuff of looking at the games as far as like their artistic merits or gameplay elements and stuff like that. And you see this all over YouTube with reviews and with like pieces on this, like everything. They try to politicize pretty much any element they can. And content creators?
Okay. All right. Oh, I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah.
Reviewers.
Right.
People who sort of, because there's this niche of you. Okay, so you don't actually create content yourself. So you don't create your own art. You don't create. But what you do is that you take artworks that exist already, but you don't really review them. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're sort of using them to make some sort of like points that you want to make about politics or religion or whatever like that. And so that's why you're seeing,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I think that's why you see these all these games turn into these huge political battlegrounds.
And one example, and I've heard this complained about many times, but in Last of Us Part 2, for instance, Dana, how many white male characters survived till the end of the or I'd say not even white male, how many main characters survived to the end of the game? One, right?
Yeah,
Joel's brother, and he was severely maimed.
It all survived. I mean,
that's true, yeah. But there's people that have made an issue out of that, saying they killed all the men. There's no men, So
I mean, there were two. Let's see. So there was 2 women that survived: a trans boy and a guy. I don't know.
Right.
So
yeah.
I guess,
I'm just saying. These are some of the complaints we get. Right.
And
about,
I think the huge issue too is it's affecting how games are made. It's affecting how stories are being told now, where people are like self-censoring themselves. This is happening in writing and stuff too, where it's like, oh, I was going to talk about that, but it's too political, so I have to change this storyline. I have to change that storyline. Well, Mark, just imagine some of the games of the past, like Super Metroid comes out and Samus is revealed to be a woman at the end. That would be a big thing now. It would, back in the day, it's like, oh, cool, it's like Alien, but now it's like this whole thing.
Back to your earlier point, where basically there's this cottage industry now of like people, professional, opinionated people who will review these kinds of games and give their perspectives, and it becomes the thing that they do, maybe even what they get paid for. And so they start becoming sort of like a weapon in search of a thing to slay, and
yes,
so it's
exactly.
I feel almost like when I was talking about Last of Us, before it even came out, people were jumping on it because it was like, it's not even so much about the content that they're reviewing so much as just they have an opinion and they're looking around for something to smash. And it's like, and
all they need is a little bit of ammunition, anything. Just seeing Abby's muscles, for instance, they're like, oh, that's it. Look at this,
It loops into a previous narrative in their content that SJWs or whatever are taking over the industry and that they're censoring and all this stuff. And then they find things and sort of weave together across their YouTube videos, articles and stuff, these narratives that they want to build up. But they're not really all that interested in the games themselves. It's all just ammunition for these agendas they have.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you see it from the other side too. I remember back with Gamergate, you had a lot of people who, was that Anita Sarkeesian or something like that? She reviewed a whole bunch of games and hadn't really played any of them either, and just kind of strung them through a narrative, and it's almost like it's almost like the games are suffering from all of the
she's
BS.
she's a great example because you can't even bring her name up in a conversation or on social media without just getting completely destroyed. It's like and there's many other examples too, but she's one. She's like, I almost want to say she's the one that started a lot of this divisive. I'm not saying it's her fault or anything. I'm just saying that her doing her videos and that she was doing started a lot of this stuff.
I think it was just going to happen though, because it was happening in other sectors. It just made its way to video games. It was happening in literature, like in college. I took these literary classes where we sit down and we talked about, okay, which characters are secretly gay in this book? And we sit down and then we were like, are these characters being queered? And like there's this whole structure behind all this that's sort of made its way into video games. That's, I think, just bigger than just video games.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that.
Politics of salt water corrodes everything.
You're right, man.
Making its way into video games, basically.
I can relate to that. Salt water does corrode everything.
But I would say like the feminist critique of video games and the Gamergate critique of their critiques, like I would say divide everybody's points by like 5, take 20% of what they say, and there's like some good points in there. And it's unfortunate that you can't have sort of calm conversations about these points. It's like having 2 daughters. Like I look at the gaming industry. I look at a lot of the ways that my wife used to be ridiculed in games and called a dumb bitch, and you suck at video games because you're a girl and stuff like that. And there were things that bothered me that I thought would have made for good, honest conversation in gaming, but it's just the volume is so high and everyone's so pissed off that it seems so difficult to make any kind of reasonable conversation without everybody just flipping out.
Yeah, I feel like if The Last of Us Part 2 had come out 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been quite it's just, it came out, this particular game came out at a time, at least it seems like we've never been more divided as a world. It's like, and maybe just on social, maybe it's all really fake.
I think the big reason is because you can monetize this now. 10 years ago, you couldn't really monetize being controversial and having these little essays.
I didn't even think about that, man. Like
monetizing, so you can literally make a living off of doing
Think about all the guys that made when The Last Jedi came out. That's the other thing. Dude, there are so many videos, and they're showing up in my feed, like boom, 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 The Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars movie. It's social justice warrior garbage, blah, 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 blah. I didn't care for the movie, but it's like, I think it's ridiculous. What these people are doing.
It's like, what content moves and what content doesn't, and that kind of stuff just moves.
Yeah, I didn't. True in politics too, though. That just the monetization of rage, rage is this addictive crack cocaine type of substance now that everyone wants to get in on monetizing. And I think it's sort of just.
I didn't even think about that aspect.
It just infected everything, right? It's like everyone loves to hate everybody else and have a bad guy.
And the algorithms don't help either. They pit us against each other.
The algorithms love it,
and they keep showing us what we want to see, right? What it thinks we want to see, and it's So all right, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll dive into some more specific examples of the controversies in gaming, and we'll talk some more about social media. So we'll be right back. We're back. And now we are going to discuss our second topic. Well, it's not really a second topic. So we're just going to expand on the first topic, which is outrage culture, right? The poisonous nature of social media and how it affects gaming. So, as I stated earlier, it's 2020, right? This is the year of Satan, basically. We all know that what that means when it comes to social media and the internet in general. Differing opinions, right? Lack of agreement and arguments about the simplest elements of any topic under the sun seems to be what's going on lately. And at times it seems impossible to find common ground on anything when you're talking to someone via 240 characters hidden behind a screen of your choice. No one seems immune to this behavior unless you literally cut yourself out of the conversation and social media completely. Mark, there is a new controversy almost every day, it seems. What can be done? Is it just human nature to be combative, or is it something deeper than that, do we think? Let's examine some of the bigger gaming controversies, I guess, and why people behave the way they do on social media. Justin, you have a bomb to drop, so... And since you didn't contribute one bit to the last topic, why don't you start us off, man? What do you think?
I think I've let you all believe I've got a bomb to drop. I have no doubt I will be combative depending on which angle you want to take. But you might actually just inherently agree, because I don't know that I'm necessarily against anything that we've said. I think if you want to study this topic sort of outside of games, where I think a lot of what you were talking about in the previous section is that which has become socially acceptable, the acceptable norm of behaviors, and where it trickles down from. Now you said earlier, you said, this could get political. Well, okay, so let's talk about politics. In figurehead politics in the last few years, the number one that we all know is Trump and Trump's America, and it becomes acceptable or believed to be acceptable to act like the perceived leader of the free world. You can talk how you want, as you want. I mean, effectively what you've got there is the second coming of Hitler. We all know it. I'm sure half the audience will think otherwise.
Oh, you dropped the H-bomb.
No, hold on. I don't want to talk about that. That's fine. But what I do want to say is you're from the UK, so you're getting, the rest of us are all Americans here, so we're getting your perspective on this, and you're sounding like a left-wing person in the United States right now. So Trump has affected things that much, even over there in the UK, is what.
Justin, there's a phone call from a Godwin on line one for you.
Look, and I know this will, this in its own right is caused as divisive. And what we don't want to do is touch politics, but be aware of how I think it filters down. So something I don't think people are aware of. okay, let's go with what I think America's unaware of, regardless of which America, is that the concept of left-wing, right-wing politics in the UK, you have traditionally two parties that are traditionally a left-wing and a right-wing party, but actually they've both become centre or centre-right. And actually what's opened up in the UK, which I think is actually quite European, is this huge centre wedge. So you've got this like huge load of people that are in the centre. So traditionally, which will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody who listens to this who knows me, my political leaning would be to the party that is typically seen more to the right, but I have lots of more left ideology. However, all of those people, I do not know a single person in the UK who has anything positive to say about Donald Trump. So this belief outside of there's this belief that everyone in England who would vote for Boris would vote for Trump. Absolutely wrong. Even the
Brexit people, that's considered a right wing thing, right? Brexit is would be considered like our far right, right? Supporters.
Wasn't that Labour involved in Brexit too, though?
Well, this is the thing. See, this is the misconception, and it's important to understand is, there's a mix. I have a mix of friends who Brexit has got nothing to do with whether you've got left-wing or right-wing politics. There's plenty of people who voted for Brexit who had left-wing politics. The point is that of all the people that I know and I converse with, there's not a single person who's behind Donald Trump. There's not a single person I know in the UK who wants anything but him got rid of because of the disaster that he's caused, this toxicity in the entire world. And it's important, and the point of this is that this toxicity comes from his number one mouthpiece, and his number one mouthpiece is one of the biggest social media outlets on the planet, which is Twitter. And behaviours at any level are learned. You don't have to be a major in psychology to know that. And so what actually happens is that this actually starts to filter down, and it's what you've seen. And there are other outlying influences, such as the growth of social media. There are more people using it. The internet has become a more used platform. I know people might think, oh my God, the internet's been around for ages, but actually its growth is huge.
Yeah.
And so what that filters down into is this second life, this alternative reality in which you can effectively take on a completely second persona, the classic keyboard warrior, and say what you want, how you want. Then that goes into all of its own sub-genres. So there's the trolls. Then there's people who are just outrightly, there to destroy and are pure hatred. And these all kind of become sub-factions. The one that I will probably have a pop at Mark about is one that I think is one of the ones I hate the most, is the false belief of celebrity. I gain followers. I'm in this wonderful little community that I'm the figurehead of. And it's and
I'm not saying I'm an e-celeb.
and people
in the waste, Mark.
We'll be in contact.
I think he's pointing out the way you left Twitter, the way you announced, Let's
go
better
there.
than this.
Let's go there for a start. So there's plenty of people that I follow in what is considered sort of called the gaming community. Let's go with Twitter. That's my social media of choice. And frankly, most of it's just full of wankers. It's largely self-serving bullshit that's all about, oh, look at my follow count. Oh, look at my cool stuff I post. Oh, I'm going to have a big old cry today. Oh, this, and this. And it's like, you're not a celebrity. No one actually gives a fuck about your existence. And when people call each other friends and they've never even conversed, not even on a video call, they've never spoken, it's just 240 characters, fuck off. No one cares, and certainly no one cares when they have the little Barneys. Look, let's go for it. Mark, I love you, but I also love poking holes in you. A 52-minute video to talk about why you left Twitter is a fucking embarrassment.
No way, dude. No way.
It's an embarrassment to you as an adult.
I'm ready for this, baby.
Taking his hat off.
Just for reference. Listen, for reference, Mark quit Twitter about a month ago, maybe, and announced it very vocally on Twitter. Said, "I'm done with this shit. Goodbye," and then recorded about almost an hour-long video on his YouTube channel explaining his decision. So
I think that's great. That's great, man. Let's encourage some other people to quit Twitter. Good on you.
Yeah, maybe.
What is really interested me the most is how much it seems to have affected Justin, because it seems like it really got under your skin a bit.
I think
I just felt the heat wave from the barn pass by.
So
just tragic.
So it's what's funny is I feel like I'm being perceived as something that I also speak against, which is people who consider themselves e-celebs, or people who consider themselves like that their follower counts and their view counts are what determine your value, determine your talent, and all those types of things. I've actually had many videos, and I think in that 50-minute video that you think is an embarrassment, I talk about how I dislike Twitter because there's this whole hierarchy where people will look at your viewers or your followers, and they will put you in like their little caste system and say, oh, this guy has 5,000 followers. Okay, I can talk to him. Oh, he has 100 followers. No, I'm not going to talk to him. And if you're a content creator, you can see this very clearly play out. I'm sure Zack has a ton of experience with this, finding guests and stuff. But
I watched your whole video too, by the way, the whole thing. So
how many followers did you have, Mark?
I don't remember. Not that many. I'm not.
I can't talk to you then.
I'm not an e-celeb. So, I don't think. I think I'd be considered not a non-entity as far as followers and viewers and stuff.
If you have under 1 million,
I feel like
on Twitter,
if you're under 5K, you're basically, ignorable status.
Untouchable. Yeah.
Untouchable. But in that video, I recorded that video because I wanted to explain in clear detail that I was choosing to leave Twitter, not because I'm having this Twitter meltdown of, oh my gosh, like emotional.
Mark, you definitely have emotional meltdowns on occasion on social media. I've seen it. You definitely do, man. It's okay.
Like when?
It's okay.
I want an example here, Zack.
I can't. You sound like my wife now, dude. I want the specific example.
Somebody had to leave it right now, Mark. We could find it for you, Mark.
No, I can't give you a specific instance.
I'm not sure about what you're referencing, but
retract that statement.
Back me up, Justin. Come on, man. I'm trying to take your side here.
I can't point to a specific example.
All right. My I guess we're wrong then.
My question would be why it kind of flies in the face of, it's almost an oxymoron. I want to talk about these things, but why do you have to tell anyone why you leave? So, you don't tell everyone when you close your door in the morning and you go out to work, because equally no one gives a fuck. So what, why? I don't know. I don't get it.
If you believe that it's causing sort of like the corrosion of society or something, then it's like,
So I think this is really interesting because I think our views on social media are just extremely different to begin with. And why we use it. So I use social media because I am a content creator. I use it to project my voice and my content out to people. That's my 100% use of that. I don't use it to make friends. I don't use it to get popular. I don't use it to make social connections. I have no interest in any of that. I use all social media to promote my content and promote myself and my thoughts and views. So everything I do on social media is coming from that lens. So it's not a matter of, oh, does this make me look like a stupid bitch, or does this make me look like a crybaby? Everything is about, okay, whenever there's something happens, I want to create content around that. And I want to explain my views and thoughts. So if I just randomly delete my Twitter, I'm not doing that because I'm having this emotional feeling. I'm doing that because I'm trying to send a message to people. And so that's why I recorded that video, to explain what message I was trying to send you, which I feel that Twitter and social media is counterproductive to the creation of the type of content that I want to make. So that is why I have deleted my Twitter and made that video.
It's a distraction it can be a distraction for sure, and especially when people say negative things, right? I mean, that gets under your skin, Mark. I know it does, because I know people have said some vile shit to all of us before, and you get pissed. I get pissed too. You know, I had some guy.
The perspective. You know, I on a daily basis get people coming at me on a literally daily basis.
Yeah.
Whether it's on Twitter,
it's annoying.
All these different places, and especially on Twitter, I wrote that review of the Psikyo collection on the Switch, and I explained in great detail the issues with it and stuff. And the funny thing is, on Twitter and in social media, there's something, you know, like the hate mob. It's really interesting because if you've been in the center of those, and I've been in the center of many of those at this point, it's really interesting to watch how people's behavior will change, where people who were your colleagues who would never directly message you, but once that mob gets going, you get people jumping in there calling me an arrogant jerk or whatever and stuff. And then when the Twitter mob is over and you're proven to perhaps you were correct, which I think I was, the devs themselves even said, hey, we're going to try and improve the input lag in the Steam ports. It's not like everyone on Twitter messaged me and says, you know what, we were a little out of line. We were being a bit emotional, and you know, we take that back. No, that's not how it works. Is once you get mobbed, you're just mobbed, and then everyone moves on.
What's crazy is if that were real life, though, like people would, if it were a work colleague or something.
Yes, exactly.
You had terse words, the next day it'd be like, I'm sorry, man. You know
what would be amazing would be someone create a video game or even a movie where people just speak like they speak on social media, like to each other in person.
That is a great idea, and everyone's
like that would be amazing because it would be so absurd, you know, and so ridiculous. Sure. I used to get an idea for a game, man. That would be pretty funny, actually.
I'm gonna make my billions with a machine to let you bitch slap over the internet.
Yeah, I know, right?
that would solve all of the internet's problems, right?
Yeah,
and there'd be consequences to being an asshole.
I also think it's good to notice that there's context to that video because I have a series called Uncut, which are like these long sort of videos where I discuss topics and stuff like that. That episode happened to be about me quitting Twitter, but there's other episodes I talk about like other things in that long.
Well, Mark, how did we meet? By the way, I'm trying to remember if we met on Twitter.
On your YouTube chat. No, it was YouTube.
It was YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I
saw one of my videos.
I was commenting on your videos, and then I reached out to you on the farm.
That's right. Oh, so, yeah, the farm.
I don't
Speaking of places that are toxic, the farm, and that the farm, by the way, is the shmup forums, and forums can be just as toxic as any other form of any other social media, right? Like I got dogpiled on in the forum many times, and Mark did too. Mm-hmm. You know, just from an opinion you have, you know, of something.
You can get dogpiled on Twitter, on the forum, in Discord.
Right. Yeah, anywhere.
Podcast. It can happen anywhere.
So this shit was, you know, you think about forums. Forums have been around for decades, right? Probably since the 80s, right? Like a long time.
BBSs,
maybe even before that. So this kind of shit's probably been happening way longer, just at a smaller scale, maybe.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, because forums were the old way of, but I think with forums, it wasn't.
There's moderation.
There's more
moderation.
Well, there was moderation, but there wasn't instantaneous like it is now. So people had time to think a little bit, as opposed to just, you know, Twitter is just, you know, immediate.
Plus, it doesn't follow you everywhere you go. Back in the day, I didn't use forums all that much, but back in the day, you like log on to your computer like once a day or something. So
right, and you check it.
Argue for a day, then you got to go do stuff and come back and maybe.
Yeah. It's the immediate ability to share your innermost angry thoughts at any moment is what the problem is.
And what's fascinating now with cancel culture especially is that now you actually can possibly suffer consequences for the stupid thing that never gets erased that you said 7 years ago. That's one thing I talked
about in that 50-minute video. Was about the liability of your Twitter.
Do we have any examples?
To your career.
There's lots of movie examples and Hollywood examples of people that this happens to, but can we think of any gaming people that said something on Twitter and then got canceled?
Even back in Gamergate, people got brigaded.
Well, yeah, Gamergate with with Depression Quest and the girl, what was her name? That made Depression Quest. Didn't she? What started Gamergate? It was Zoe. Zoe was her name, and she made a game called Depression Quest, and supposedly Zoe Quinn, and she supposedly exchanged sexual favors for a good review of the game or something to a journalist. Was that the accusation?
Yeah, she supposedly had some kind of
funny?
sexual encounter with 5 journalists.
You know what's funny about that is that seems so unnecessary, because having done reviews like in a semi-professional publication, like the pressure to deliver positive reviews is pretty high, and I think I got let go of my position because I didn't give a game a positive review, and it got put in a Twitter spin cycle, and it didn't look good. And so, yeah, I think like with The Last of Us and all these games that come out with like these stellar, glowing reviews across the board. I think that's just there's also an environment that's been built up that really heavily makes that happen.
Why? Okay, let's hone in on that topic. The difference, The Last Jedi is another perfect example where, and I sort of keep going back to that, but I feel like it applies to what we're talking about too, and The Last of Us is another example where critic scores are like 90 something percent, right? And then user reviews are like, so why does that happen? Why is there such a difference between what the critics think and what they
want
general
different things, right? They're
why though?
Watching it for different reasons.
What's the
I actually think I know a part of it, at least. Part of it is that there is an ecosystem among critics that does not exist among gamers.
Okay.
And, like, there's this whole system of like critics like checking with each other. For instance, I got Backlash because everyone else gave that game a positive review, and I gave it a negative review, and there was a lot of pressure for me to give it a positive review because it looks embarrassing to the publication. It's like, every other publication gave it a 7 or 8 out of 10.
There's a pressure there.
5 and a 4. What the hell is wrong with you?
I never thought about that.
And then you get in a situation where basically I look like arrogant because I said, well, you all don't know what you're talking about. That's one reason, is that critics, there's this sort of like peer system where if you go against your peers, you're basically bad mouthing.
It's peer pressure.
The game, but you're bad mouthing your fellow critics, which I was like, listen, you all don't really play Psikyo games. Y'all don't really play shmups on this level. So yeah, I'm going to say your guys' reviews are bad and mine is good, but not a lot of critics are willing to do that. And so that's why you also get this real uniformity across scores. And so then social media doesn't like that I wrote that negative review. And so social media comes at me and says, why do you think you're special? None of them actually read the review, in which I actually explained why I gave it a low score. But it's just like, well, every other publication gave this a high score. We feel very strongly that this game needs to have a consistent high score across all reviewers. Your review sticks out. And then I got the people who gave it a high score. Now they're feeling self-conscious because they're in their little mob and they're starting to calling me arrogant and all this. And my whole goal was, none of that was my goal.
Was this the catalyst for you quitting Twitter, or was it some other?
This is actually months before I quit Twitter.
Okay, all right. Well, this was one of the straws, that was leading towards breaking the camel's back or whatever. I see what you're saying though, man. Like, listen, you did more. It sounds like you did more of a technical analysis and explained why the game didn't play. To you anyway, why, or hardcore people, right? Like people that like you that
and
analyze
I was
frames
hired
of lag.
to give that. Like, that's why I was hired. I'm a hardcore player. This isn't a mystery.
Right.
And so I'm hired to give like a hardcore professional-ish review to this game at the standards of a hardcore player.
Right.
I do that. It doesn't match up with all the casual reviewers who just said, oh, it's a great value and there's lots of games on there.
You put in more effort, you put in more time, and
this conversation began because I explained you're wondering why professional reviewers all have these really consistent scores across each other. Why is it so uniform? I'm saying this is why, because if you stick your neck out there, it's going to get chopped off.
Yeah, okay.
You get dropped from your publication, or whatever it takes.
Yeah, and then the Twitter mob can then just it stops caring originally what the subject matter of the criticism was about. It just kind of takes on a life of its own. And yeah, I imagine you were probably in a situation where it's like people start saying you said things that you didn't, and it just becomes its own thing.
Well, it's really frustrating because no one actually reads the review. Like, they literally don't read the review.
All they got to read, they see the score,
They see the score and just start messaging me. It's like, did you read the review?
Do you know that for a fact?
I do know that for a fact because people will say, like, they'll mention things, and I say, well, I mentioned that in the review. I mentioned this in the review. They'll basically give me feedback that I address within the review. Like, I'll say in the review that Gunbird 2 in itself is an excellent shmup, a classic game. We all love it. The problems with this game and this port that I'm deducting points for is because of how poorly it is ported, how much input lag is added, which makes it basically unplayable, and how many features it lacks compared to its other peers that have ports, like the M2 ports. So I'm giving all this criteria of why this game gets a low score. And then I get all these feedback from people that none of them, they're giving me criticisms, but I already addressed many of these critiques in my review itself.
You can't win, Mark. You just can't.
Oh, and I don't doubt this at all. People just look at the score. They always do.
Yeah.
Well, not always, but yeah.
Yeah, but the vast majority, sure. I mean,
yeah.
people, you're going to get people that'll read it, but the majority won't. They'll just see the score. They'll see the headline. They'll be like, oh, fuck this guy, you know? And that's
exactly, yeah.
And that's, I see what you're saying, man. And who did you write this for, by the way?
Nintendo Life.
Nintendo Life. That's right. Okay. All right. I forgot about this. Yeah. So I see why you're taking this personally, because they.
Well, I've been in the middle of it for years.
And so. You didn't. You've brought up a lot of good points I didn't think about, especially in terms of reviews and how the peer pressure is probably there for these reviewers, especially if a game is popular or other reviewers seem to like it, to give it a high score, even though there are quite obviously issues. But you also have to put it in perspective and think, okay, so what's this game called you were talking about?
It's the Psikyo Shooting Collection.
Psikyo Shooting Collection.
Switch.
All right.
Yeah.
So for the majority of us, 7 frames of lag is probably not a big deal, right? But for hardcore people, it's a huge deal. I mean, remember when I was doing my Star Fox run, right? The game runs at 15 frames a second if you're lucky. Usually lower than that, right? I had no issues with. I mean, sure, I had some issues, but most people were saying that game's unplayable. You can't play that shit nowadays. It's like you need 60 frames a second. But I was like, I can play it. It's like, so it's really, everything is subjective. Not everything, but I think most things are subjective. And that's the problem. Is like, I'm not saying you're wrong, Mark. I'm not saying you didn't present all the facts and evidence you could, but it's like now I want to go play this Psikyo collection and see what I think.
I understand it's definitely subjective, but what I'm saying is that with the environment of reviews that are now, there are certain opinions you just are not allowed to have. You're not allowed to give. Let's say Last of Us 2 comes out. One reviewer hates it, but is he able to actually? And he works for a major publication. Is he actually able to give that review? My thinking is
maybe not.
No, but maybe not. Maybe the reviewer publication that works for says, hey, we need a minimum of an 8 out of 10 for this. You can say whatever you want, but that score needs to be an 8 out of 10.
So did you get pushback?
I did have
from Nintendo Life.
Yes, I did have some of my scores just straight up changed. Like I gave a game a 7, it's an 8 when it's published. It's like, oh, okay, it's an 8.
All right, okay, all right.
And then I've even had controversy where I wrote a review and gave a game like an 8, and they bumped it up to a 9. And then I wrote another review, and without asking me, and then I wrote another review, and I gave the game like a 9 or something, and then they left it. But in my second review, I say this is the best shmup on the Switch. This is the best one. Then people are asking me like, wait, you gave that other game the same score. How is that possible? You're contradicting yourself. It's like, and I can't just be like, well, the publisher changed the score. I had no influence over that decision. Yeah. So I just empathize a lot with these reviewers. Like you really are just disposable mouthpieces for whatever the publisher wants you to say.
See, I didn't realize any of this that you've been going through this. So that's kind of enlightening. I mean, we all kind of knew this kind of shit was happening anyway. It's like it has to really to a point. I'm not saying that every review is fake and that publications change every score, but
the longer we take, the more you've got to edit, and I know that's something you love doing.
All right, so we talked about Gamergate, right? We'll cross that off. What else do you want to talk about? There's a No Man's Sky debacle, but we've talked about that before on here, and I'm one of those people that liked the game from the beginning. Of course, I was called an idiot. I even wrote an article defending it, and people were calling me, all kinds of nasty things.
And every one of those can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, right.
Well, will they write you back and be like, looking back on your review, you had a lot of good points, and
the thing is,
no, that doesn't happen.
But it doesn't. But No Man's Sky is kind of an exception because it has improved drastically over the years, and all free updates. And a lot of people have come around to it. You know, there's still people that don't like it. Sure, it's not for everybody, but you know, like I said, we've talked about it for a lot on this show, but it's come around. It's a good success story, I guess you could say. So, what else did you want to talk about, Justin? You said Paper Mario, for instance. So let's talk about that, because I wasn't aware of that there was even a controversy around this new Paper Mario game. So let's hear it, man. I somehow missed this.
Has Mario been revealed to be a trans man?
It turns out that Mario is actually Princess Peach. And he's trans. No, just as an example, but it's with that classic outrage culture, and I was going to kind of branch off of that as well as this is actually going to we didn't mention entitlement, which I thought would have been a nice little spin-off of this as well. So the Paper Mario debate basically stems from all the way back to the Mario RPG, Super Mario RPG,
right? Which was a true RPG, developed by Squaresoft, no less, right? So
indeed,
yeah.
Very much. It was we'll go true RPG. And then I'll let myself down here, but I believe you had Paper Mario on the N64.
I think so, yeah.
Which was seen very much as the, because people loved Mario RPG, and it kind of came late in the SNES life cycle. And it was, here's what this is going to become, slightly different aesthetic. But yeah, love this. And then Paper Mario, I think in the 1,000-Year Door, it was on the GameCube, which pretty much stayed with the same mechanic, very, very well received. And then it just went and just kind of turned off the RPG element almost completely, and moved into very much this kind of roaming adventure type game. And every time there's been a release of a Paper Mario ever since, there's been everyone comes out of the woodwork to lobby Nintendo, and then start getting very aggressive with how crap Paper Mario is, and how this is the biggest hold up in the world.
I know. I just blame the Wii. I mean, the Wii was Nintendo trying to appeal to a mass audience, right? So they probably just dumbed down. That was the one, right, on the Wii that was the first one to be kind of dumbed down, as you're saying, right? So maybe that was the reason, or maybe it's just Nintendo. How many RPGs does Nintendo? Fire Emblem, right? Does Nintendo develop Fire Emblem, or do they? No, they don't. Okay, so they don't really. Nintendo doesn't really do RPGs, really. I mean,
you can argue The Legend of Zelda.
I was to say Breath of the Wild's the closest they've ever gotten, I would say, to an RPG, even though there's no leveling, but no true leveling.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, that could take us in a whole other angle.
Right.
But
that's a whole episode.
The earlier Final Fantasy, yeah, you're right. There were quite a few RPGs earlier, and then just kind of can't think of it.
Definitely, but I think what this then becomes is, and where you see this opinion stem from, is this this entitlement culture that we see inside and outside of games as well. You would believe that the gamer, casual or otherwise, is absolutely entitled to exactly the way the game is running, or the experience that they should have. And actually, what sort of spawns out of that is their opinion that comes off of that. So then, whilst there's lots of different factors that come in, that entitlement, and there's these Nintendo fans in this instance believe that they're entitled to this absolute, shock and horror that this RPG died years ago, and that we're entitled to this game that you once made that was brilliant, and you haven't made another one. And that's what's born out of. And I think a lot of
entitled. Entitlement. People, I am entitled to a game being exactly the way I want it to be, and if it isn't, not only do I not like it, it sucks. Everybody else thinks it should suck, and if you don't think it sucks, you suck too.
That is the attitude. I didn't even think about mentioning entitlement, but you're right, Justin. That is entitlement plays a huge role in people being pissed off about a game or entertainment property, whatever, not being what they want it to be. It's like going back to Last Jedi again. Like, I didn't want to see Luke Skywalker as an ornery old man, not wanting to be a complete asshole and you know. And
I thought it was so great that they were handing off the quest to the new generation, and that they
so
that trope needs to die.
Yeah,
Hard.
exactly. Yeah,
I think
so
another
entitlement
hard
for me.
aspect is also that people put these older games on these massive pedestals where if you try to change anything, like Last of Us, right? Like people talk about Last of Us like
the first one was
saved
legendary.
their lives, you know? So it's like it gets so personal to the point where the games can't really just be games anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like I said, you can't win. I'm trying to think of what's an example of recently of a universally loved game that was released. Can anyone think of one where there was no controversy, where everyone was just kind of like, okay,
Animal Crossing.
I think you're right. I don't remember hearing any sort of complaining whatsoever about Animal Crossing. That's a good point. Because even the latest controversy is the new Avengers game that's in beta right now, right? Everyone's bagging on it, saying it's just a simple looter shooter and there's bugs and all the typical bullshit that you hear, you know, about these these quote unquote open betas that these companies do.
Well, Animal Crossing had a whole bunch of different iterations. My eldest daughter forced me to watch a video of every single Animal Crossing game.
Really? Did she?
Yeah, and so
does she want to play the Nintendo 64 one now, like the original?
Probably when she's done. But I wonder for a game like Final Fantasy VII that hadn't been remade for like a super long time, you know, and that, you know, people are always going to perceive the game as through the lens of nostalgia, and so it can never really exceed that. I wonder if there's any examples where everyone was just like, "Oh yeah, that was a great remake."
Yeah, recent examples is in the last couple of years. I don't know, man. I'm racking my brain trying to think, and
XCOM,
I feel like
what about XCOM? Like, were there people that were? I mean, that's not a huge game, but it had a
No, those were the sequels or the remakes were. People love those, it seems like, you know, but that's not a well enough known property, really. I think you need something big, you know, something that everybody knows that where people just lose their minds if anything has changed at all, you know, or
Star Wars level type, a cultural phenomenon that you try to rehash.
And hence why there was a very, I would call it a minor backlash towards Breath of the Wild. You know, it's like, I think the very most part, I think the backlash from Breath of the Wild came from people that just weren't able to get into the game. They're like, my weapon's breaking. I hate this, you know. And that was my issue with it. You know, I almost quit the game because I got so frustrated near the beginning. Yeah, Justin's gonna, because Justin begged me. He's like, no, please you need to keep going, keep going. And I'm really glad I did, because if you just get past that, you know, it's like, it was just, they switched up the formula. And when that happens, people get upset. You know, some people get upset. Sometimes a lot of people get upset. So
I think we should take this and every other opportunity we get from now until forever to remind everyone that Zack loved the game so much he bought it twice. I did. It's something that I continually love to remind you about.
My greatest sadness in life is the fact that I can't wipe out my memory and play it again for the first time. Kids.
There you go. Yep.
Alcohol does exist.
Alcohol and meth and all sorts of other lovely things, right? So, all right, I think we can wrap it up now. Before we go, Dana, tell us a little bit about Songs of the Aeons, which is your game you're developing.
Oh yeah, so since I was like a little kid, and I know you'll remember, Zach, I was always making like little strategy games and stuff like that with, you know, cutting up cardboard and stuff like that and make my own games and everything. And
our own three-way and four-way chessboards and Monopoly games and whatever.
And you told me one time, a long time ago, I had made like a gazillion pieces and I dumped them in front of you. And I was like, all right, let's play this game I made. And you're like, you need to learn the program and just do it on a computer. And I was like, well, one day maybe. And so, after my eldest daughter was born, I got into programming originally so I could teach her, and then realized like, wow, this is really fun. And so maybe I should finally make that game I always wanted to make. And so I've been working on it for years now, got other developers involved. I've always been interested in every field of science and in history, and I wanted to find a way to synthesize all of that knowledge into one product. And so we started out by making the world's most realistic Earth-like planet generator with plate tectonics and climatology and soil science and ecology. And
how far along is the engine itself? Like, how far along are you into that process? Is it done, or is it like have you started working on actual game aspects of the game?
So
yet?
we are finally putting in the very first sort of game-like mechanics, right?
Okay.
So initially, the people that were really in the first few thousand people that showed up, you know, to download and be part of the community were interested in the world building aspect because they wanted to make Dungeons and Dragons maps, and they wanted something that looked like a real Earth-like world that followed the same rules of physics and plate tectonics and stuff like that. And so that's how kind of like the community started, right? And then a lot of other people are interested in the long-term mechanics. And the idea is we want to make this big complex world with living systems where if you chop down the trees, it changes local climate and changes rainfall patterns, which influences your civilization because they can't grow as much food, those kinds of mechanics, right? And it's basically, I'd like it to be a lifelong project and just continue to work on it for the rest of my life and make it more.
So
more.
you're making, what you're doing is you're making the Unreal Engine of strategy games is what you're making,
yes.
basically.
And long term, what I'd like to do is be able to plug in other games into this living world too.
Yeah.
So basically you could kick the idea is this game continues indefinitely, this world. It never dies. Societies are destroyed by disasters and technologically fall back into obscurity and things like that. So the game can go on indefinitely. And in the future, theoretically, we'd like to be able to plug in other games into that planetary and geopolitical simulator and have sort of like, imagine playing an RPG where you have all of these events swirling around you, sort of influencing the game, right? So in theory, it has the capacity to sort of grow into a lot of other different things. But
yeah, it sounds like Civ 7 needs to use the engine is what it sounds like.
It's a little too big. So Civilization has something like a few thousand tiles, but as long as the Aeons has 1 million to 2 million tiles.
Whew, okay,
It's massive.
It's ambitious, man.
We simulate everything. Right now, we simulate everything from realistic water bodies and rivers. And, you know, we literally have, for instance, like the plate tectonics will determine the type of bedrock that's in the ground, which determines what it weathers into. It's transported by rain and water flow and winds, which determines soils, which determines the ecology that's there and the plants that grow and stuff like that.
It's completely bonkers.
It is. It's like a spiritual experience, to be honest, because it's like you get to learn about, you know, you research every single field of science in the process, and people in the community will go out and get information and bring it back to the community and show scientific articles or historical articles on how the Persians had horizontal wells that allowed them to tap into aquifers in the limestone mountains. Just all of this stuff. And when we build it into the game and into the engine, it creates these really kind of interesting, exotic, emergent gameplay mechanics. And so when a drought occurs to your society, it's not because you ran some random number generator. It's because, you know, some larger climatological factors are in play.
Something else affected it that caused it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, man. Of course, that sounds amazing. And at some point, we'll get you on the podcast and just talk about that. So
it'd be cool to talk about the development process.
Definitely.
Getting it into your life and getting it from social justice warriors and neo-Nazis. Could you not?
we have such little strategy game talk on this podcast, I realize, because not a lot of us on here are strategy gamers. I think I'm probably the most of anyone on the podcast. So yeah, that would be cool to switch it up a bit. So
let's play some Civ 6 at night sometime.
I'm game. You, me, and Donald can play, man. So anytime. So all right. All right. Thank you, everyone. So that'll about do it. On behalf of Justin Day, MarkMSX, my brother Dana Smith, our producer Derik Moore, I'm Zack Smith. We are the GameFellas. We'll see you next time. Later.
Taxation is theft.
Have you ever bought games that sit in the cellophane and you never take them out?
Would you like me to go get a couple of them now?
No, I believe
I think
you.
we all have.
I think he still has Bloodborne unopened.
And
most of the games I have never played. Honestly,
here's Doom Eternal that I bought like 3-4 months ago, and it's still in the cellophane. I haven't played it.
Did you ever open Bloodborne?
Nope, Bloodborne is still in the cellophane, sitting right there too, and I bought that
bought that
5 years ago.
The other day, this will make you laugh. I say the other day, it'd be this week. I realised.
Bloodborne.
Oh, there it is.
Yep,
in the cellophane. I realised that I'd bought the same copy of a game from Limited Run Games. I didn't realise I'd got two of the same fucking thing, and both are in the cellophane.
That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic.
I mean, that's utterly ridiculous.
It is.
No, I think that's called Alzheimer's, actually.
Oh no!
Oh, what a great game! I think I'll buy it. Oh, what a great game! I think I'll
buy it again. Yeah, and I haven't even played it. So Zack, have you and your boys still considered to continue just to give up on COVID? I don't know. I've lost track that the world.
No, Justin, it's a hoax.
It's a hoax, man. What are you talking about, man?
No. I know.
You're in on the conspiracy, obviously.
It's a hoax, man.
Damn it,
it doesn't
I'm
exist.
the right-wing asshole of this podcast.
All right, and we'll let Justin jump in since he hasn't said a goddamn thing since.
I was going to ask him when you wake him up.
I know what's happening.
I'm getting
Justin's
ready.
Absorbing.
Yeah, he's getting ready. So yeah, we're gonna let Mark and Justin go to town after this. I got a piss too, so I'll be right
I
back.
could feel the bomb being gathered. He's like
puffing and ready to blow the house.
Bring it in.
Basically, I think it all kind of has a common thread, right? Where basically the algorithms reinforce people sort of aggregating into these siloed communities where people can all just sort of jerk each other off.
Yeah, walled gardens.
Right.
Whatever.
And no one's there to tell you like, hey man, this is a little bit crazier. That's
yeah. I think that's why I've been playing Civilization so much, is because I can dominate the world and just kill everybody.
The only thing more dangerous than Chuck Norris is an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Have I got a what?
Justin wants to dunk on America. That's what he wants to do.
I don't need to do that. You guys do it every day on yourselves. You are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, we are.
And you guys are forgetting the most important thing, especially you, Justin. When it comes to U.S. versus Britain, we're 2-0.
Yeah.
2-0, baby. You can't be dunking on America too hard.
Dude, COVID's been the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm telling you.
Same.
I'm not even joking.
Seriously, for you, it is, man.
Wonderful.
You're in a unique situation, though. You know.
I'm in agreement. I mean, for us, it's made business go up. I've got to spend 6 months at home and not go to London. Mm-hmm. I've spent £7,000 less this year so far.
Wow.
I've got to be more involved with my football teams. It's been fucking brilliant.
Why didn't we do this all the time?
I'm not working 60 hours a week to working 40 hours at home and having mostly nothing to do all week.
You guys are all in. You too, Derik. You got a stay at home job. Justin and Dana both get to stay at home. I don't. But it's like my business has been exploding lately, and I don't think it has anything to do with COVID.
In two ways.
Maybe yeah, right. Yeah, my trailer exploding, my truck exploding. Yeah, whatever. But other than the bullshit, yeah, it's like maybe people, since they're at home more, they want fish tanks. I don't know. They want something to look at.
That's a good question, actually. They're stuck in their house, and
Dude, I'm not even joking, right? If we start getting a vaccine for this shit, regardless of all the politics, I've already got some frozen bats in the fridge. I'm going to be feeding them to every fucker that wants to eat them. Go again, guys. Go again.
It kind of tastes like pork.
Yeah, I need another year at home. Take another bat.
You've eaten the bat, Derik? It tastes like pork? I'm not going to question you about what you've eaten. I know you've eaten squirrel. And
bat I have not eaten. I just assume it tastes like another mammal, and pork.
It probably does.
Like a mouse or something.
Because bats are laid out kind of similar to us, minus the wings, like where organs are at.
Yeah.
And we taste like pork, apparently. So
bats are kind of similar to us, minus the wings. That is National Geographic headline shit right there.
Looks like rats. The reason why we use them for a test is their organs are laid out in the same general vicinity like ours are.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Same with pigs, almost identical. And I think, if I remember right, bats are laid out internally the same way we are.
Explains
except
why
their
we.
fingers extend.
So
Explains-
takeaway is bats and mice are basically the same as people minus something.
I mean, also,
I'm not wrong.
If they're going to run millions of tests, can you imagine the size of the lab full of pigs? Fucking hell!
We call that a police department.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me translate to British English. The Bobby.
Hobby department.
Yeah,
the Bobby department.
Is there a
I don't even
Bobby
know.
department.
the
I
Bobby.
thought it was
box?
Scotland
Makes sense.
Yard. Is Scotland Yard a thing still? Is
Yeah,
that
Scotland
Yeah.
March or
Okay.
Yard still a thing.
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
The Bobby department. Anyway, where you go?
Yeah, let's. We got our outtakes here. That was good.
No,
We got some
you
funny
think?
stuff here. Yeah. So